right. Welcome to another HEF podcast. This is the podcast of the Home Education Foundation, the HEF podcast. Home Education Foundation is a organization that was started by the beloved Brenda Dickinson back in the early 1990s, just after her and her husband helped to secure a massive victory in the state of Florida for parents who wanted to educate their own children and not have to send them to a government school or incur the massive costs that come along with the private school. They are able to, with home education law in Florida that was established in 1985, parents are given the right to educate their own children as they see fit. I say given the right, maybe it should be the right that we have was recognized in law and protected by law. Is that something that Brenda constantly talks about, the importance of having laws that protect those rights? And she has been doing that for the last 40 years in the Capitol, being the voice of parents in the Capitol as a part of the Home Education Foundation. And now she has passed the torch this year and retired. And so I am the new torch bearer, the one being the voice of parents in the Capitol. My name is Jason Crawford, and welcome to the Home Education Foundation's podcast. Thank you to the parents of the free state of Florida for supporting the Home Education Foundation's first annual fundraiser in 2025, August 2025, with a donation match. We had a home education family offer a $6,000 match campaign and challenge families across the state that if they could match that in pledge, they would donate a lump sum. And right at the end of the month, we just hit those numbers. And it is the first time we've ever been able to do that. We are looking for another sponsor for next year to do this again. So if you know of anyone, reach out to them and have them reach out to us at info@flhef.org. And we have the details ready to go for that. As we have other sponsors throughout the state that come alongside us, we want to tell them a special thank you as well. Thank you to Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TBHC Group for being top sponsors and title sponsor. If you're interested in what that entails, you can also reach out to us for that. But a lot of the work that we do, we don't have any mega corporations or huge donation funds that back us. It's mostly parents and business owners who believe in the work that we do and the importance of their freedoms, and they come alongside us and support the work that we do. And here we are doing it. So if you haven't already, if you find this podcast helpful in any way, before we get started, go ahead and slap the like button and slap the share. Let people know that you love your freedoms. We're going to dive into it. Well, welcome back. Brenda is with us, but she's having some difficulties with her camera, so we'll see her. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone who, I hope you guys had a wonderful week and a break. I hope there was some sort of break for you in that week. That this week is always one in which I wait with bated breath because there's bills that get dropped, and then there is this long space in between where everyone gets to stare at the bills and wonder what's really going on as we kind of sit there for a holiday in that dreadful silence before things move forward. And so I hate that. I hate that part of everything. I don't like the waiting. I like to get in the mix and get things done and stir the pot, and that's not what gets to happen. So on the Thanksgiving break. So I am very thankful, though, of the time that we had with our kids to just kind of take a breather and take a moment. There was some nice and quiet. We don't always get that, and we did. So it was very good. Brenda, how was your Thanksgiving? Yes, good family time indeed. A little chaos kind of helps make things a little better. I got your mic on now, so I apologize. I just realized I didn't have your mic on.
Okay. I was trying to find some light on my face, so I hope this is better.
So much better. You look great. It's good to see you. So last week we dropped Senate Bill 318, which is sponsored by Senator Gates, Senator Simon, I believe Senator Burgess, and co-sponsored with also with Senator Pizzo. And so it is going to prove to be the quote unquote big education bill from the Senate this session. And it's aimed squarely at the scholarship and fixing a lot of the things that were issues or holes, things that have been raised over the last several years, with especially since the emergence of the PEP scholarship. We've seen a lot of attention brought to homeschooling as a whole across the country, and then especially in Florida as well. And we've seen a lot of things happening that not everybody's really putting together. I know I have a lot of conversations with people, and there's a lot that they don't fully understand, or there's some seems like a fringe piece of data that's actually really, really important that gets overlooked, and then we kind of like push the train forward. So I've been trying to have as many conversations as I can with people and press pause and take in important data. This bill is interesting, and it's something that if you haven't had a chance to read through, you should hop into our Discord. In our Discord channel server, you're going to find a channel there for legislative updates. And within that legislative update, you're going to see the SB 318 educational scholarship thread. You'll see Senate Appropriations Committee thread, House Pre-K budget thread, Senate Education Pre-K 12, and the House's Student Academic Success Subcommittee. These are the four main committees. So as these committees meet, I'll be putting updates throughout session in these channels and threads, and you'll be able to see them there and interact with them. I'll pull this over real quick. You'll actually be able to see on the side over here legislative updates, and then each of these threads will be here. So if you're interested in following along with the bills and the bill information and what's happening, the real-time interaction will be taking place in our Discord. You can get to that from our website, flhef.org/Discord. And it's a free account. You can log right in and set it up. I did notice that once we dropped the bill information, we had a huge wave of signups that came through where people are trying to get accurate information. I know that there's a lot sometimes of fear being stirred up in some of the Facebook groups. And so people are thirsty for good, accurate, solid information. We upload the documents. So if you want to see a copy of the bill as it stands now, you'll see it there. As it gets amended, we'll post updated versions of it in the thread so that you can follow along with the changes as things go through. We talk about what's important to us agenda-wise, things that are issues that we find with the bill, and things like that. So you can kind of follow along with the work that we're doing here. We did post a blog. Crystal, you were saying something about the website?
Yeah, so I checked it this morning. We had a couple of comments that for whatever reason I didn't get a notification for, so I've responded to those. But most of the conversation is happening in the Discord, so make sure you hop over there if you're wanting to follow it. But our post about the bill from last Monday has had almost 1,200 views so far. So this is definitely something that people are interested in and looking for information on. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll try to put that up there. We want to do that for the website because it helps with the search engine optimization and things like that. But we find that there are a lot of AI bots that scour the internet just to post random things in comments and try to get people to click on them and fish for information and stuff. So we prefer not to let the comments on the blog be where we get the primary interaction with our team, because Discord is a total different thing. There's two-factor authentication that are set up. You can only have one account per email address. And there's a lot of really good protections that keep bots and spam out, so we can have a good community that is Florida citizens focused on home education and their freedoms and rights, and want to be involved in the discourse. So you'll find it there if you're interested. The extra attention that's kind of been being brought to home education over the last several years has prompted some interesting voices to speak up or have interviews with people. And I found a podcast. I don't follow this person. I think that because of all of the research and things that I do on social media and the things I'm constantly searching, I think this particular podcast episode got pushed into my face, but it's the Ellen Fisher podcast. She describes herself as a having thought-provoking conversations and debates with various experts and thought leaders on topics as parenting, nutrition, relationships, financial freedom, personal growth, and self-love. I'm not advocating her podcast or her. I don't know them, but I found the episode interesting. The conversation that emerged between T. James Brewer is a PhD and associate professor of social foundations of education in the teacher education department at the University of North Georgia, and Matt Boudreau, who's been a public and private school teacher, administrator, and also been a keynote speaker, and I think he's been a two-time featured TEDx speaker, and was named Corporate Trainer of the Year by Stanford University. So both of these men have kind of accolades, and they clashed. I don't want to say they clashed. They clashed very politely on questions like, are home education parents qualified to teach? Is home education optimal? What is the purpose of education as a whole? And they really kind of went down the rabbit hole in a lot of ways, and I appreciated the conversation, but it got me to thinking about a lot of the conversations that I hear people discuss. One in particular that I had with a senator recently, in which he made a comment about how, everybody loves their freedoms. Everybody loves their freedoms. They just want their freedoms, but what are they going to do with them, really? What are they going to do with them, really? And I started to scratch my head, and I was like, whatever we want. That's kind of like what freedom is. But it just the tone of the conversation introduced this pushback idea that, like, if you aren't doing what we think you should do with your freedoms, maybe you shouldn't have them. Or maybe we should narrow in what that looks like for you so that you can have a version of your freedoms that we agree with, because it's more tailored, and you can't really mess this version of freedom up because we've kind of curated it for you. And I mean, I kind of bit my tongue a little bit because this was one of the first times I got to interact with this senator, and I didn't want to, go in hot right away. But I was very disappointed with that conversation. And I actually like this senator a lot, so I'm not naming this person because I'm hopeful that I'll get a chance to interact with him further. But it got that conversation, and then seeing this podcast kind of emerge on the back end of that conversation, and being able to sit over the Thanksgiving holiday in quiet solitude and contemplate all of these things is really. I want to have a conversation, and Brenda, you should help me with this because you have so much more experience here, and I'm a bit of a wolf. I think I'm a bit of a fighter. I enjoy a good conversation in which we both get to bite down and chew on something, and I sometimes I think I come across maybe as too intense, but I really like the starting point of the question, what's the purpose of education? And kind of going back to have that. Brenda, what would you answer? What would you say to that? And you can take a minute to think about it if you.
The question is, what's the purpose of education?
Yes, in general, what is the purpose of education?
I think it's to teach people, children, how to think, provide them the basic skills, and help them broaden their view of their world. And so exposure to things around them, creating curiosity, because education should be a lifelong adventure. It should not be what I can memorize in a classroom and spit back on a test. That is not education. Education is to motivate somebody to learn. If they ask a question, which I know you do very well with your own children, they ask you a question, you don't just give them the answer. You send them to research. So you're teaching them how to learn. And that's much more important than giving them facts to memorize. Unfortunately, we have been since the early 1900s creating education in a classroom, which is not education, it's school. So a child sits in a desk, the teacher gives a lecture, and then the child's supposed to do a few problems or do some writing and spit back what the teacher gave. Well, when they get out in the real world, it doesn't work like that. So we want to, in home education, whether it looks like what somebody else thinks education should look like, we want to teach the child to be self-motivated, to be curious, to learn how to find the answers. To me, that's real education.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love that you pointed out it should be a lifelong pursuit, because I think about the boxes that we inherently assume upon ourselves when we hear certain words. And when you hear the word education, you're right. We conflate it with school. We think it's only for children. And we start to narrow in the boxes of all of it. And if I had to just go as broad stroked as I could go, but have a definition that I think fits it, I would say it's to learn how to seek truth and what to do with it when you find it. And that ultimately hits, any endeavor. If you're applying that to finance or science or social sciences or language or grammar, all of it can kind of hit in that one big umbrella, but then it's a lifelong pursuit. It's not something only children do. And I think that we lose sight of that. We lose sight of that because, we're going to argue about whether or not a kayak is of educational benefit. It's like, well, I could show you 9 different ways to Sunday how it could be. But it doesn't matter if all that you think that should be happening is school. If we've narrowed in so tightly on that definition that we've lost sight of the true target. And I think in many ways, a lot of the conversations that we have in the committees and with our legislators or with each other as our kids are playing on the playground or, riding a bus, we lose sight of true targets. And that's where the conversations kind of deteriorate into, well, is a home education parent qualified to teach? Well, it depends on whether you mean school and all of the standardized things that we've started to cram down people's throats over the years, or if you mean education. Can they educate their kids? Certainly they can, and they should. But I was reminded of, it was interesting. I caught up with Senator Gates just before he filed the bill. So right after the committee spoke, I got a chance to kind of briefly touch shoulders with him and have a quick chat and introduce myself. And he said, "Oh, Matt, I saw Matt the other day." Matt Gates, his son. So I saw Matt the other day, and Matt said, Dad, I went to public school, but I was home educated. and I was like, well, that's great. That's a great way to look at it. But now the lines are all so blurred that it's hard to then see the forest for the trees. Everything is kind of just being interconnected and thrown together. And I think we have to define our terms. We have to really get down to, is it education or is it school? Because school looks one way, but education does not. Education can come in many forms. Watching a child fail and fail hard is a great educational moment. To watch what they do, to watch them struggle, to watch them suffer through the pain of not knowing something and getting just bent sideways, and then the light bulb coming on. Like, they're never going to forget that lesson. Whatever that thing was, they are never going to forget that, man. I guarantee you they'll take that with them, and you can test them on it in 20 years, and they'll still know the answer. But you get them to cram for a standardized test, and 2 weeks later, that's gone. That is absolutely gone. So we've got to get back to the roots. And I think asking the question, what's the purpose of education? To teach how to seek truth and what to do when you find it is so critical, so key. I mean, that's my definition that I've kind of come up with. It doesn't have to be everybody's. I'm not, some grand philosopher telling everybody how to think or what to do, but in your home and in your home education path, this is something that's important to you, because as you're looking at what you're going to do with a scholarship, if you need one, and somebody taking away my rights. Oh no, 10 curriculum's awesome to choose from. I never had that before. And somebody else goes, man, they excluded the curriculum we were using because we like how it develops this. All of these things are issues that we can potentially come in contact with. And we need to understand what we're about. Each family needs to understand what they're about, because it's good. And this is one of the things that I believe Matt Boudreau mentioned in that podcast, and I love that he brought it up. But it's good to have the greater good of all humanity in mind, and the greater good of society in mind. And education should be for every child, and every child should get a free education. And what we really mean by that is public schools should be made available for everyone to attend. But the truth is, when I have children, and they are my responsibility to raise their minds, I don't get to blame school and say, oh, my kid ended up being worthless because school failed them. I bear the responsibility of that as their parent, regardless of how successful they were in school or not. And so it's still my duty and responsibility to raise and teach them. And the freedom to do that is critical. Having access to that freedom is critical. And my responsibility first is not to the greater good of society. I think serving the greater good of society is important, and we should be concerned about the world as a whole. But the only thing I truly have the greatest impact over are the children that are mine, the ones that were born and under my watch and care. And my duty and responsibility is to them first, and them always, and everyone else second. And that's a harsh reality, but to help them pursue truth and the wisdom of what to do when they find it, those two things are critical. Every curriculum, every expense, everything should be in service of that until they're ready to be released on the world and do their own thing in a way.
If every parent did that, it would be for the greater good of society, because we would have educated children. They would be able to take facts that come their way, analyze them, seek the truth out of it, and form their own opinions. And that's so important, that people get the ability to think for themselves and to analyze, because there are a lot of opinions, there's a lot of data, there's different facts that even science comes up with, and it's contradictory, and you need to learn how to learn and to come up with truth based on good information. Mm-hmm. That is education. That is what we want to do. And for the greater good of society, if every parent did what you just described in teaching their own individual children, coming together, we would have an educated society. I think people have lost the understanding of what public education really is. It's teaching to the middle. And so what you get is a student that comes out of there. Some are going to do better than others, but the actual system teach to the middle. And so those that, even though they try hard, a classroom with a child that has special needs or is a delayed learner is not going to serve that child as well as a parent who is a one-on-one. I mean, that was the original model of education, was a tutor, somebody that had more knowledge, and they worked with individual students in the early days of our country before public education. So when you look at curriculum, and I know parents are afraid they're going to miss something, and so they rely on curriculum. Remember, that curriculum was written for the middle of the road. So if your child is a learner who wants more information, you're going to have to supplement that. You're not going to get it out of the curriculum because it's just going to teach middle of the road information. And today we have so many resources available through the internet that parents don't actually need a curriculum. I mean, I guess that's shocking, but if you are in tune with your child, you know whether they're equipped to move ahead of fourth grade. Maybe
I think that's just scary for parents not to have the structure or guardrails telling them, like, this is what you should be teaching. But you're absolutely right. You don't need that, really. If you're following your child's pace and letting their curiosity lead, they will learn. They will be getting an education, and learning how to find information will be part of that. So
you're honing in on the teachable moments. They remember what they're interested in. That's been something that has been proven, even for older people. Gobbledygook, somebody just tells you to memorize for the sake of memory. You do it and you move on, but you don't really dig in and you don't really understand it. So my approach to education when I was teaching my children, there was no curriculum that I felt was appropriate for my children. We only had 3 choices, and they were all designed for the classroom. There was a little bit of new information in the middle of the book, so I didn't think spending that kind of money was worth it. I'm just kind of cheap like that. So,
Me too.
So the library was a great resource.
Yeah.
Just, life was so interesting. I remember one day we came home from the library with a whole bunch of books to read, just reading material. And we saw a wasp digging a hole in the ground. I thought that was very curious. What is it doing, kids? So we watched, and the wasp flew off, and then it came back with something in its little legs and buried it and then covered it up. And so I said, back to the library. We got in the car. We didn't have the book at home. So we went back to the library and searched to find out that it was called the digger wasp. And so
I used to do the same thing as a kid. I would come home with, I think our library had a limit of 20 books. So I would get interested in something and come home with a stack. I remember I was trying to convince my parents to let me get a pet rabbit. Came home with like 20 books on caring for rabbits so I could research and show them that I knew how to take care of a rabbit. I mean, I was the same way. Now with the internet, you don't even have to go back to the library, though.
Isn't that great? That's so awesome.
Julie Pringle, I just real quick wanted to say, because this goes with what Brenda was saying.
Yeah.
She said, I was a teacher in public school. I can completely validate what Brenda is saying. Teach to the middle is exactly what happened, and we lose children on both sides.
Yeah, and I'm listening to you, Brenda, and, going back to that question, what's the purpose of education? And I think you've made me land on another phrase or statement. I was taking notes as you were as I was listening to you. The purpose of education is to develop toward success without forgetting that life is interesting. And it's so important because, like, systems and a systematic approach and a standard, these are all things that we need in order to kind of keep that middle moving, keep everybody, flowing down. I went to public school when I was a kid. You put your quiet finger up. You didn't raise your hand. You walked down the right-hand side of the wall. The boys went to this bathroom, the girls went to that bathroom. You took turns drinking out of the water fountain. Someone counted 1, 2, 3, go, and then you stopped drinking and got back in line because that's all you got. And you just like these are all ways in which we move that middle with systems and standards, and it can become so systematic and mundane and trapping. Those four walls, are painted a single color, and sometimes they try to decorate them, but my oh my, I'm just gonna say it out loud. You take a picture of a school, it looks a lot like a prison. There's fences around the outside. There's cubicles everywhere. They line up in lines. They're told when they can have access to the outdoors. They get their, what do they call it, yard time, and then they go back in. And maybe that system is helpful for a lot of people who have no other option. But everyone should have the option to educate their own kids as they see fit and the freedom to expand their minds. And I know there's good and bad people in varying degrees, and not everybody's gonna get a hold of that freedom and do well with it. Some people, the freedom to succeed is also the freedom to self-destruct, and that sucks. I mean, that's harsh reality, but that's what comes with it.
Right. But let me just say in the beginning, and we've always contended from the very beginning that home education is self-regulating.
Yes.
If a parent is not really committed, heart, mind, soul, and time to their children to educate them, they will find another place to put those children. So maybe the children are not taught, but they're still learning, even if they're at home. You almost can't stop a child from learning unless you make it so boring that they just shut down. Yeah. So you put them back in school and they're behind the standard, but that doesn't mean that they haven't been learning. It's just the parent may, for financial reasons or other reasons, are not cut out to home educate their child. And I hate that because some parents really want to, but they can't afford to. And it is a financial commitment from parents. Even though they have scholarships for curriculum and other elective stuff, the parent still has to be home with the child in order to home educate. And so it's a huge financial commitment.
Certainly. I think the one of the biggest threats to home education in this big movement is in fact the scholarship, but not for the reason many people think. I think many people see the scholarships and the big expansion as the threat that they're going to come take away all of your rights and lead you by the nose with a ring, and the shekels will be shackles. I think the real truth is that home education is a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice of time and life and my attention to other things because my children are important, and that's rightly so. And I can't be in two places at once, and so I choose to be with my children, even if that means we went down to a single car family, even if that means we took no vacations as a family, except the ones that we could walk to and talk about. And we had no scholarship when we started home educating, and I didn't have a scholarship back in Alabama when my mom started home educating me. And so it's passion led, and it's conviction and conscience led, and it's sacrifice is what holds it together. And the convenience that these scholarships bring, I can remove that sacrifice over there. I can remove this one. It teases us into a place of comfort, and then it's very easy to be lulled into thinking that all of our options, all of our choices should be made out of what's convenient to choose, or because it's easier to do that now. And so we can and we should because it's easier. And that's not the case. It's always has to be a decision of the heart, and one that is driven out of a real true conviction, and sacrifice does not deter your headway.
Well, and something that kind of speaks to what you said and what Brenda said, a lot of families that are coming in on the scholarship are not coming in because of conviction. They're coming in because now they have this, what almost looks like an easy button opportunity to homeschool their kids. And they are self-regulating. They're trying it for a year and then being like, this isn't working. And they're going back to private school or using the scholarship in a different way, because home education wasn't really what they were looking for in the first place. And so I think both are true, but the concern is the culture shift, because of how students are labeled. So if all those students are labeled home education, but they're actually mostly doing hybrid private schools or whatever it is they're doing, then the voices that are speaking for, quote, home education are not the traditional home education voices. So just a reminder there that it's important for those of us that are in home education because of conviction, whether you're taking the scholarship or not, to be involved and to speak up and protect those rights, because there is a culture shift happening. Just because so many people, school choice has opened up the opportunity to a lot of people who didn't really understand what they were signing up for, I guess. And then they're finding it difficult. And so they're kind of like creating these hybrid pathways that are not really home education, but are still falling under the label of that, if that makes sense.
It does. And I want to, something that you said triggered this thought in me that made me feel protective over these people who are coming in and dipping their toe in and getting the experience, the homeschool experience, because they finally have a chance at resources to make that possible for them. And I don't throw any shade on them. I feel very strongly that those people, welcome aboard. Please come here and enjoy your freedoms. But don't sell out. That's the encouragement here. Home education families who have done this for a long time and paid heavily, come alongside these families and teach them how to be frugal with that scholarship and what they can really do. And they don't have to buy a $3,500 accreditation from a 5-day drop-off program.
Or even a $3,500 curriculum package. You can piece together so much on a low budget.
Yes,
you really can.
And let your child direct that. What it is that you do. What are they curious about? You're just the person that's going to catch the teachable moment with that child and help them pursue whatever question that they've asked you. So you're teaching them how to learn. That's the key to education to me.
Yes. Yeah.
Also, I would just want to say to the people that are new, give it time, because when you first step into it, it can feel overwhelming. And I see so many people, and it makes me sad because I love home educating my children. I love that. And so when I see people jump ship within the first year because it just seems overwhelming and hard, and they're not sure they're doing enough, it's for good motivations. They're worried that they're not doing enough for their kids, and they let that fear kind of overwhelm them. If I have a chance to speak to those people, I always encourage them to just give it time, because everything feels harder when you're new at it, and if you give it enough time, sometimes you'll figure things out and find a stride and realize I can do this. But so many people seem to be so overwhelmed at the start, and maybe it's because those of us who have been doing this a while are not coming alongside enough to help them. But yeah, give it some time. Allow yourself an adjustment period. Don't expect to come right out of the gate and everything is smooth and perfect, because it won't be.
But I think the pattern has been over time, right along with what you're saying, Crystal, is parents who decide to home educate their children bring school home the first year. And so they're trying to do it the way they did it in the public school, but that isn't home education.
No, and that is overwhelming to try to do that.
And in the second year, if they'll stick with it, they'll figure out, oh, my child doesn't have to do 10 problems or 25 problems just because they're in the book. They got it the first 10 problems. So, we don't need to do homework or extra work. Let's move on. We didn't even use a math curriculum until my children started in ninth grade with algebra. We just played games with them, and we did math on the run, and they understood concepts. They were so fast in first and second grade, that they knew all the multiplication tables. I mean, it's like they were way ahead of the curve. So if you just work with them and listen to what they're doing and spend time with them in whatever they're interested in, that's really, truly home education.
Yeah, I see a lot of
individual child.
I see a lot of parents trying to fit in the subject matter structure of school too. Like they're expecting to cover all 7 subjects every single day and to school 6 to 8 hours a day, that like how their kid would be in school. And that quickly burns out everyone if you do that in a home environment. And you don't have to do that. We rotate subjects. We don't do every subject every day.
Yeah.
And we don't even do every subject every season, because sometimes I decide to focus for a season on these particular subjects, and then we'll circle back around to other things. It's whatever works for your kids, that where you're following their needs and their interests. You don't have to replicate that structured subject matter schedule at home.
Yeah. And I want to speak to that manufactured fear, because that's what it is. It's a fear that 1,000 years ago didn't exist. Oh, am I teaching my kid enough? Are they learning what other kids in school are learning? No one cared about that 1,000 years ago because it wasn't a thing. We've manufactured these systems and we've manufactured standards because we want to put feathers in our cap and feel better. And I've got a piece of paper, so you should listen to me. I'm an expert because my piece of paper says so. Not because I can churn out kids who know how to read, because, I mean, we've seen what the Florida Department of Education put out and how many students graduating can actually read, but they're still being graduated. How many times does somebody graduate with a degree from a university and they don't even work in that field? I think it's a 75% ratio to graduating with a degree and working in some other field, because you've just got to move on in life and get by. You've got to learn how to be successful in life, whether the education and the dogma or the track that you are on matches where you're headed in the future. So you've got to adapt, period, no matter how much money you sunk into it or what you did. So this idea that you're not doing enough because that system and that standard does what everybody's told is enough, and you're not sure where the compass points you, take a breath. Slow down.
Deep breath.
Take a deep breath. I was listening to a video recently. I like to listen to these kind of mindset videos that are born out of like ancient philosophies from, samurai culture or Greco-Roman philosophers and things like that. And I like to put them on meditation while I work out. And one of the ones I was listening to recently was how Musashi created his routines. And essentially, a lot of people fail at coming up with this new thing that they're trying to do because they try to do 10 or 11 things all at once. I've got this plan, and here's what we're going to do, and we're going to do all this, and they mash it all together, and what they've really done is create 11 points of failure in a new system. And I thought about that, and I thought, wow, that's so true. That's how we are. Because we think that because we have access to all this information and all these systems and all these other things other people have done, we can just grab one and like start implementing it right away. And he said the same thing. Take a deep breath, step back. For the first 7 days, add one thing. And for the next 7 days, add one more thing. And for the next one more. And then what you'll end up with is, if you want to implement all 10, you have a slow, progressive way of building up the life that you're looking for. Or in this situation, I would say, if we applied that to home education, strip down everything that the public school is trying to do and do nothing for 7 days. And realize that it didn't destroy your child. Maybe you actually figured out by watching them what they're curious about. And go put one more thing into your life now that tailors to their curiosity. and build on that. Every 7 days, grab one new thing and build on that. I guarantee you that at the end of a year, you will have your own systematic approach that matches your child and is sustainable for you in teaching them and adding to them on a regular basis. You don't have to create a system with 11 points of failure and then feel like you're overwhelmed and can't do it. The last thing that we really need in the home education space is a bunch of families who come into home education with a scholarship and think they need to go buy a pathway that has all the bells and whistles, or, man, it's really hard. I see that. I need a home education option where I can drop my kids off at. Like, that's not home education. That's school. That's school. That's what you're looking for. It's a private school, or it's a micro school, or it's a public school, or a charter school. And all of those exist, but those are school. And if that's what you're looking for, then go do those things. But home education's, it's a totally different thing. The world is your classroom. And you decide, you set the standards as the parent. And your child's curiosity, meeting with all the information that the world has to offer, and finding a way to navigate that toward a successful path in life that makes them formidable, resilient, and adaptable, so that whatever comes their way, they can move upward and onward and take care of those around them. It's critical.
That curiosity is also so easily killed if you try to replicate that structure at home.
Yes.
I came across a reel this morning. I sent it to you. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, but
I did not have a chance to watch it. Sorry.
One of the things they were talking about in the reel, just when a baby is born, it cries out of pure instinct of self-expression. It has no concern over filtering its self-expression. But then very quickly, children are trained to throttle back their interests and curiosities and self-expressions, because we put them in a school system where they can't even go to the bathroom without permission. If they have a question, they raise their hand, but if it's not on topic, they get told to not ask it. And so that natural curiosity is trained out of us by the time we reach adulthood. But if you look at the people that are the inventors and the geniuses, they're the adults that retained that curiosity, right? So
constantly curious.
That's one of the great benefits of home education, is that you can preserve that natural drive of curiosity for your child and encourage it to where they become a self-motivated learner following their interests. And that's going to look different for every kid, but it should, because society needs many different types of skills. And I think the school system is trying to standardize, and we're losing the variety of skill sets that we would have in an ideal world.
let me add to that, because I've been wanting to kind of monkey branch in or branch it and graft on this part of the conversation about standards and systems, because a lot of people may not realize it, but the video game industry is a long-standing expert in the field of systems. Because when you take, I was talking to a friend recently about the video game World of Warcraft, and when it first launched, it was so much fun. It is this huge open world. I'm a night elf, and I'm running around, surviving in a fight against a panther with only my knife, and then I skin it, and I learn how to make something from that, and I craft some clothing, and then I go out into the world wearing the clothing I crafted, and I think I'm cool until I come across someone else who's got cool,
it was, for those who haven't played it, it was a truly captivating experience, because it was what they call open world, meaning they had created this entire virtual world that your character was free to explore. It was not like the original Mario where you can move in one direction. And everything was able to be interacted with. Trees, rocks, like you could interact with the entire environment.
You can pick flowers if you want to.
I can see the similarities already to home education with that, but go ahead.
Well, so what's interesting is that game was interesting for a variety of reasons and for a number of years. It had cultural marks and hallmarks to different dance moves or artists and punchlines and sitcoms or movies that they had cleverly worked into the quest dialogue, and it was truly a fun game. And I lost way too many hours of my life playing that video game. But they relaunched the original version of the game, and it was really interesting what happened. So that was early 2000s, and they relaunched the game. What was it, 2017 or so?
It was around 2020, I think.
Yeah,
maybe
it
a
was
little before.
somewhere around there. Yeah. And what happened when they relaunched the game is all of the places that you used to go to farm loot or to do this or to do that were known. They were known, and there was data tables, and somebody had done the math and put together the most optimal gear that you could get. And so now when people went back and they started to play this game, they weren't playing the game and discovering all of the beauty in the different parts of the world. They were what we call min-maxing. So they were going and moving through the levels as fast as they could, and I know where all the optimal gear is, so I've plotted my course, and this is the route I'm gonna take, and I need to get this piece of gear, so I've got to.
For minimal effort, they were trying to make it all about efficiency of the end results of the loot you get and stuff.
It all became about a systemized approach to gain the maximum amount of gear for the minimal amount of effort, and that system, everyone did it, and what it did was it destroyed the game. Because the love of the game, the beauty of the exploration or the discovery or fighting to your death with a pocket knife and against a panther was gone, because you knew where everything was, and you borrowed from this systematic approach to distill the game down to nothing more than trading time for maximum gear stats. And what we've done in education, because it's human, this is what we do when we have systems, and systems that kind of sort of work, is we game them. We game them completely. So when you have a standardized test, because this is how we're going to measure education, whether or not we did a good job, what do? Well, you teach the test. Why? So we can get a good score on the test. Why? So we can get maximum results. Why? So we can get maximum pay. Because that's what I like to do. I don't want to go home with minimum pay. I want to get maximum pay. And I want to go home with an A school rating and not a D school rating. So what do? I do all the standards. I do all the things to the standard. And where does the exploration mind go? Where does the ability to discover new things or think that life is still interesting go? Well, don't worry about that. Just memorize these things, because this is what's on the test. This is what you're going to be graded on. Those things, they're not important. What you're graded on is what's important. Do the system. And when you walk down the hall, keep your quiet finger up and all the other things too, because this is how we approach life. And that ultimately is where we end up with any system. Any system is the same way. I'm going to throw shade on the home education community, because here we are with our own systems that we do that with. You're hearing nothing but classical educational models lately. I've heard about them a lot, and I love it. But it's a bunch of dead people who thought about things, and in their own times, maybe they weren't even thought of as such wonderfully, smart people. Galileo wasn't completely loved for all the things we now borrow from him to say he was brilliant on. There's a lot of people who weren't brilliant in their time that we look at and they're brilliant now. They were just people to the people around them. They had plans and things failed, and sometimes they got laughed out of certain situations only to later be called a classic by people like us. Somewhere around you is a person who is the new classical. And we might be killing their creativity. We might be killing their drive to be interested in life and excited about all the opportunities, because we're just trying to get through the next phase. We're trying to get through this level and beat the next boss and get the loot from that. I need my degree over here, because if I get a diploma, then I can go to this, and then I can entry that way, and then I'll do well on an interview because I'll have all these things on the resume, and then and then they still bomb it. And they have a hard time finding a job, and they can't get a mortgage to pay their house, and life is still real difficult and complicated, and nothing in that system that they tried to game really truly propped them up the way that we thought it would. And there's just so many ways in which we've got to be careful in general of systems, because you don't always just give your freedoms away to legislators. Sometimes you give them away in your own thoughts to all the other people who want to sell you something. All right, I'm done.
Well, if I can just add to that, I have a lot of compassion for the parents who, out of concern for their kids' future, essentially do what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
they look at their child
I agree.
and they're worried that their kid doesn't fit the mold. And instead of seeing that as a really
Good.
cool thing, like, hey, my kid might be one of those geniuses that's going to do
Yeah.
something really interesting in this world, they get fearful that their kid isn't going to fit the expectations, or isn't going to succeed at college, or isn't going to get a high enough score to get into college, or whatever it is. And I think because our society has set those particular things as the standard for success, it can be easy for parents to overlook the potential their kids have for those unique giftings out of fear that they're not quite matching the expectations of this, standard that's been set. And so that, to me, I have a lot of empathy for those parents. I'm not judging them.
Yep.
But
Agreed.
if you're feeling fearful as a parent, maybe step back, take a breath. That's kind of like the mantra of today. Step back and take some breaths and think, like, what could my kid do with this that they have? Like, how can I help them build that into something? Rather than putting them back into a system because you're just afraid that they're not going to fit and function as the quote normal kid should.
Yeah. You're reminding me of a conversation you and I had this week where we were looking at these kits from the scholar shop that we could get our kids. And, like, well, this one comes with all the pieces to do this, this, and this. And you order it on a subscription and it'll come and you can do all the things. And I'm like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I just want the
I don't want a
tools.
kit that's going to tell my kid exactly what to make and
Yeah.
how to make it. I want something open-ended that they can explore with. Yeah.
I told her, I was like, we get a lot of boxes from Amazon. I just want some tools. And then I want the kids to take the boxes from Amazon and make whatever they want to make. If you want to make a T-Rex, make a T-Rex. You want to make a castle, make a castle. And then we'll make a T-Rex and then we'll burn it down. We'll take it outside and light it on fire. Like,
if you're a parent listening to this and you're like interested in that, there are companies that actually make cardboard cutting toolkits that are like essentially to help kids do that exact thing.
Let their creative minds go.
But that open-ended exploration is so important for preserving the curiosity, and it's so easily squashed out when we try to overstructure things.
Yeah. Brenda, we're out of time, but I want to hear what your thoughts are as we wrap up today. I'll give you final word again, as always.
Well, the final word is God gave those children to you, and they belong to you. Just watch them, and each of them are going to have a different bent. Some are going to be good in math. Some are going to be good in science, but they're all curious. So just be a learner yourself and learn what your children can be and what they're interested in and how you can motivate them with the interest that they have to reach whatever goal God has for them in the whole scheme of education.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. That's a great way to wrap up this conversation. I'm going to leave it at that. And I'll walk us out. It's been a great day and a great conversation. I'll put links to the stuff that is we've been talking about. I'll put the link to that other podcast that kind of helped spawn this up. And a link to our Discord is already there and available. So if you're interested in further conversations or you want to connect with parents who have been doing home education for years and have a lot to offer to you, if you're new, hop in our Discord. If you're interested in following along what's going on with the legislation, jump in there because we'll be doing constant updates on that as we move forward as well. I want to say thank you to our parents for the free state of Florida and sponsoring what we do. We love you and appreciate you being with us in the corner. And we thank our top sponsors once again, Arete, FPEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TVHC Group. We hope that you guys have a wonderful Monday, and we will 100% positively see you back next week for another episode. We only have 4 more episodes remaining this year, so we'll make the episodes great again. That's what we'll do. All right, enjoy your Monday.